3 for Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number 4 we're still waiting for, well, bring on the chase. Out on the field at Mile High, Broncos win is our desire. Coupled with Breck, Brew and a friend, bleed orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us, DNVR. We are DNVR.
Wow, what an intro. Hello, everybody. DNVR Broncos podcast, not the DNVR Broncos crew. You might have heard us on the DNVR Broncos feed a time or two before, but these ugly mugs are going live, baby, to not you, Henry. You are
those two.
You're the beautiful baby of this show. No, all jokes aside, draft crew taking over the pod on this glorious Monday. Here with me, Jake Schwanitz, Henry Chisholm, Justin Michael. I'm Andre Simone. We are going to get you ready for the combine while the rest of the DNVR Broncos crew is out in Indy getting the whole the whole fun started. We will be the nerds at home looking at the 40 times and everything while they are at the bar getting intel from drunk scouts late night. It's a beautiful division of labor. It's what we were meant to be. Fellas, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great.
There he is. There he is.
Yeah, I think we all have like a benchmark for how long the pause needs to be before we talk. Mine is definitely the smallest. But yeah, I'm fired up. I went to the gym. I drank some water. Wow. I made some cuts on my Madden team. So it's been a nice, relaxing morning. Oh, studied for the Combine podcast too. I should throw that in.
Oh, Henry's just hitting on all cylinders today, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he really is. He really is. A fine Monday for Hank. Justin, how are you doing? I'm literally starting to sweat, not because of the show. I left my heater on for an hour. I'm going to turn it off real quick. So I turn around for a second. Justin, you give us the old breakdown.
I'm doing good. You know, CSU coming off of a late night Saturday night game up until about, 3 working on content. And so kind of slept it off yesterday. Got about 15 hours of sleep, feeling rejuvenated, excited for a big week. That was the most I'd slept in probably like 5 years.
Wow. That's impressive. And Jake, instead of hearing about your day, I'm going to go piggyback right off of what Justin said. And not just Justin getting some rest this weekend, John Elway becoming an outside consultant for the Broncos. I think that means a lot more rest for him, a little more clear-cut delineation of duties for George Payton on that. And then we hear about Josie Jewell, Broncos' mutual interest in staying together. What do you make of that, man? Where do you stand on the Josie Jewell train?
I mean, I think I'm like most Broncos fans where, Josie Jewell does have a little place in my heart, but I'll say it again. It's a little place. So it would be nice to see him back. Of course, the cap space and the salary all factors in. So that's got to be good. I mean, you're not going to be paying, $10 million plus for him. And he fills a role and knows the team. We'll get into linebackers as we move through this, but if they choose to skip on one here in April, wouldn't it be a bad option to bring him back?
Yeah, and I think with the combine talk, we'll be able to get into some of the linebackers we like best. But Hank, at this point, Jewell or no Jewell, he's still a free agent. As Jake mentioned, you won't have to pay big money, but you'll have to pay something. It's definitely one of those positions in flux beyond Baron Browning. Where would you rank inside linebacker, off-ball linebacker, whatever you want to call it? We're talking about not the outside linebackers rushing the passer on most downs, the inside linebackers. Where do you rank that as far as the Broncos' biggest needs going into this combine and into this offseason?
It's right up there. I think, free agency starts in a couple weeks, and so that's going to be what kind of defines all these. But, I mean, quarterback's the biggest. I think tackle's right there. You have a bunch of linebackers, and some of them have played well, but you're just kind of like you're piecemealing it together in a way where you're no matter who you put in there, you're hoping, right? Like you're hoping Josie Jewell can cover whoever he's supposed to cover. You're hoping Baron Browning doesn't forget what he's supposed to be doing, and then it just kind of like goes downhill from there. And so I do think that that's a need, because if you just add one, especially in a 3-4, all of a sudden you could have a pretty solid group, a really good group. And there's just, with so many young guys on the team, that seems like a good place to add just a true stud and kind of put a pecking order in place.
It never got addressed with Vic, Justin. Where do you see the inside linebacker position?
I'd probably put it as third, maybe, behind tackle and QB. I do think there's an argument for edge and corner, kind of depending on what you view the future with some of these veteran DBs. But yeah, I mean, it's been an inconsistent role for Denver for really the better part of the last half decade. There's some really good choices, and I'm excited to get into some of them today, because I have them pretty high on my Broncos wish list. But yeah, I think it's something you'd like to see addressed in the first 3 rounds, and potentially even the first round, depending on how things shake out.
Yeah, for sure. How about you, Jake?
So I've got linebacker actually at 4, behind QB, edge, and offensive tackle. As you mentioned, Dre, you can kind of ignore, or the Broncos have ignored, the inside linebacker position for a while. I would say that definitely has not been their biggest issue, so they have been able to survive because of it. We can get into the positional value of all these positions and everything. But when it's all said and done, I think linebacker eventually does need to be touched up on. Maybe you take another guy like a Baron Browning, first pick day 3 or something like that.
Yeah, Browning was definitely found at really nice value. It's going to be interesting because, as some mocks have already shown, and we've talked about on the draft pod, it may very well be that a couple stud off-ball linebackers are the best option at 9. But yeah, you do get into the positional value. I mean, it's definitely behind quarterback, and I think offensive tackle, edge, and cornerback, edge, right tackle, and QB is really the 4 that come before. And outside of quarterback, all those other needs, you can kind of figure out a way around them, even though they are key positions, or even more so. But you just need to kind of adjust your scheme to work around it. That was the route Fangio chose to go for so many years. We'll see. We'll see this time around. Let's get into the combine, though. Let's get into Indy and this whole draft class. Give me one guy you're most looking forward to going into this week. Justin, let's start with you.
I'm excited to see Devin Lloyd, because I think in this scenario, his just raw athleticism is going to just be put on display. He's a guy that can play all over the field. He's been a darling of the DNVR Draft podcast for a couple years now. If you listen to us, he's very high on my wish list. I love to watch this dude fly over the field, and he's also just kind of one of those dudes that's really gonna kind of, for a lack of a better term, look good in his underwear. It's gonna be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing him shine and getting some national spotlight, because let's be real, a lot of these people aren't exactly locked into the Utah Utes throughout the season.
Well, aside from Henry Chisholm,
That's true.
Big Pac-12 guy. But yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that Devin Lloyd has dropped off a little bit. Like his stock seems to have kind of cooled down. Especially, I mean, look, rarely does a guy turn down the Senior Bowl nowadays. If you do, you're like Quentin Nelson, and you're basically expected to go top 10. Him turning that down and then all of a sudden being talked about more in the top 20 than the top 10 has been surprising. As I've talked about, I thought he should have been a finalist. He had that kind of season for the Utes, who were ranked in the top 10 going into the final week of the regular season, and
they closed strong. So it's just, it's weird.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I mean, The other thing is he's the perfect modern linebacker because most of his value is going to be on passing downs, is going to be on third downs, where both his versatility and athleticism to drop back in coverage is really going to shine, and his pass rushing value. I just can't believe how underrated that is. The guy's got
He could be the next Bobby Wagner. Another guy that came out of a Utah school.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, I mean, and a tackle for loss monster. Jake, who do you have as your one guy you're watching for the Broncos going into this week in Indy?
Yeah, so my dude is Ahmad Sauce Gardner, cornerback out of Cincinnati, a guy who has seen a tremendous rise above Derek Stingley, above Trent McDuffie, above all these other cornerbacks. He seems to be the consensus cornerback number one at this point in time. Just seeing if he looks the part. Can you test and hit those elite numbers that cornerbacks need to hit in the 40, in the jumps? Does the length, is it show up without the pads on? That's what I'm looking for. I mean, he's a guy that you've seen the stats. I think he allowed no touchdowns in his college football career, 3 interceptions last year, 4 passes defensed. He gets around the ball, even though he's not seeing a lot of action. Does he look the part?
It's got to be helpful not having Derek Stingley out there too, since he won't be competing in the combine. Like all the eyes in terms of cornerbacks are going to be on Ahmad Gardner, and there's not going to be because Stingley's going to go out there and run like a 4.29 or 4.32 or something like that and steal the show. And whatever Gardner runs, it won't be that good. And now with Stingley not there, at least he's not going to kind of get pushed to the wayside because of that.
True. Hank, you're our pro day track expert. That LSU track Stingley's opting to run on, that's a fast track, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's a fast track. And my guy also has a fast track, and that's why this one is so big to me. This is why my number one, Brandon Smith from Penn State. Linebacker, just freaky tools, 6'3", 241, could be the next Micah Parsons. But he kind of sucks at football is the downside. Doesn't really get into the backfield, doesn't really make any plays, not much of a hitter, can struggle taking on blocks. Just doesn't have the physicality to play linebacker. Boy, is he fast, though. And the combine, and then the Penn State Pro Day, the fast track of all fast tracks, he's going to put up some crazy numbers. And, it's exciting, right? Because you can teach guys the other stuff. You can't teach 6'3", 241. And he's reportedly running 4.37s in practice. So we'll see what that's about. But I'm really excited to see what he runs.
The Penn State track is in rare form.
State track. I want to run on the Penn State track. I might get drafted if I ran on the Penn State track.
One of these days, we got to voyage out to do that and run on the Penn State track. It's so true. But wow, you're kind of jumping the gun. This isn't a pre-pro day show. This is a pre-combine show. This isn't the risers segment either. You guys went deep and back 7 heavy. Didn't expect that.
We did. But also this is why I'm excited about the combine. We don't trust the pro day. We can't trust it. So that's why combine for Brandon Smith. We turned the blinders on for the rest of it.
Love
Except it's
that.
kind of fun to watch.
It's true. I could have gone Kayvon Thibodeau and said, we got to see, this could be the consensus prospect 1, drop into the bottom of the top 10 and be a rare opportunity for the Broncos. I can always say Devin Lloyd. I talked twice as long on Devin Lloyd than Justin did in his own segment. I really apologize for that. When we go back to the tape.
I mean, my number 2 guy was Gardner, so we got our bases covered between you and Jake.
But I'm here to say David Ojagbo, the dynamic, bendy edge rusher from Michigan who played opposite Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, I don't know about often, but it was far from uncommon for him to take over games and be the more dominant pass rusher of those 2 studs on the Michigan front last season. Another guy, surprisingly, like a Devin Lloyd, whose stock seems to be falling off a little bit randomly, if you ask me. while guys like Jeremiah Johnson from Florida State have really gathered some momentum coming off Mobile and what have you. But I think Ojogbo is a perfect candidate to really blow up at the combine. And he, to me, on that Broncos front seven is exactly what they could use opposite a Bradley Chubb, opposite a Jonathan Cooper, to kind of counter that more conventional, beefed up defensive end. You get that more dynamic, bendy edge rusher. And I'm not saying he's going to be the next Von Miller, but he can fill those shoes at a decent. And I think, he's a guy who a couple months ago we were easily considering mocking him at 4 to the Jets. So I think, while it's maybe not the steal that a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau dropping to 9th overall may be, Ojogbo would still be really nice value with how highly we thought of him earlier in the year. All three went defense, just what Broncos fans want to hear. great stuff, guys. We are brought by MSU Denver, our presenting sponsor. They are the best way to find, college opportunities online on our ever-growing and developing world role. That's weird, Henry. One thing we do for funsies on the draft pod is I then assign someone to do the next read. And Henry, you've got Breck Seltzy face. I know it's a product you consume and love. Tell our people about it.
I really love the Breck seltzers. I don't think that that's much of a surprise. I think so. Like everybody at this point likes seltzers, like it used to be like 3-4 years ago, people would be like, oh no, I'm a beer guy. I don't drink seltzers. Right. The younger people were the first ones to be like, okay, we can drink seltzers. And now it's like, there's like 65-year-old men who's like, I'm not drinking a seltzer. But they're even leaving at this point. So I've been on the seltzer train for a minute. I think I only had 1 or 2 seltzers where I was like, no, I'm a beer guy. And then pretty quickly I was like, I just can't keep this facade up. The Breck seltzers, though, the Good Company hard seltzers, they're the best seltzers out there. It's also the best beers out there, too, if you're still interested in those, even though seltzers are just better than beers. It's just the way it is. Strawberry Sky, though, really good. Vanilla Porter Jr., also really good. You really can't go wrong. They have a couple different packs. The lemonade seltzers are pretty good. A little sour, but if you're into that kind of thing, I know I am, then you should try those out. They do a whole bunch of cool stuff. They give money to the National Parks Conservation Association. They partner with the Nuggets and the Avs and the Broncos and the Buffs and all these teams. We love them, and we love what they make.
That's a guy who came prepared. May I suggest calling your Generation Seltzer? I think you made take the first 20 seconds of that read, and that's the argument for Generation Seltzer right there.
I'm all on board with Generation Seltzer.
Generation Seltzer.
It's just true.
In the building. It's so true. Justin, while you too may be a member of Generation Seltzer, there is a great mortgage company that can help balance the funsies from the Seltzies with taking care of your home.
Yeah, it's a good point. The seltzers are fire, by the way. More of a mountain beach guy, but something to keep in mind for our homeowners. With prices going up, it's creating natural equity in your home. If you have mortgage insurance, chances are you can refinance out of that and make the bubble work for you. If you're in the buyer's market, it's stressful out there. Like the housing market in Colorado, it's stupid. And that's why you want my friends, Mike and Virginia Chevalier, to come in. They're going to alleviate so much stress. They're just going to take some of that burden off of you. And they're going to allow you to focus on your home being a home, not just a house. They have a fun perk for DNVR listeners. If you go to dnvrmortgage.com, you can get a free DNVR shirt or hat. Most importantly, though, you can get a free consultation to set up all of your options. That's dnvrmortgage.com. As mortgage brokers, they can shop over a dozen lenders to find the right products for you. They want you to know who you're working with and not feel bounced around. Really upfront, really genuine, good people. I've met them. They helped us at the Trey McBride event. They've sponsored the Rams pod now for like 2 years. Genuinely, I have nothing but great things to say about the Chevaliers. Go to dnvrmortgage.com. You can also call Virginia directly at 303-257-6578. Michael Chevalier, NMLS number 1931006. Virginia Chevalier, NMLS number 1910631.
True
Bow, bow, bow.
homies, those guys. Love it. Hold on, Jake. I thought they put on a better performance than they usually do when we go audio only. I think they've stepped it up for the on-air crew.
Yeah, I think the sponsors will be happy. I think the entertainment factor was a little lacking, though.
Wow. Okay, well, we've got one more, right?
Shots fired.
Hey, I'm just saying. I've
Jake
been known
gets a
to
bigger
laugh.
role, and then he just comes in hot with the. Are you next week?
Hey, I'm just used to having one of you guys making me actually like belly laugh because of one of your ad reads. So.
Right.
That's a good point.
Right.
It's tough to be
Two buttoned up.
comedic about a mortgage, though, because it's serious stuff, and they do great stuff.
Fair.
I didn't want to sell them short. They genuinely do great stuff. Go to dnvrmortgage.com. See?
Beautiful.
That's what pro does.
We are the DNVR Broncos podcast, though Draft Pod Takeover, presented by MSU Denver. Those guys are outstanding. Check them out. And we will keep on looking at the combine, really dialing in on the guys that we are watching for the Broncos all week, going in through the weekend like a bunch of sickos, watching 40s and bench presses and everything in between. And as we preview that, we're going to have some fun and get into some over-unders. Really dial it in. Look at that. Beautiful.
That's awesome.
As you can imagine, this is based on combine workouts and beyond. So Jake, take it away. You organize the categories for us. You can't bet on these at DraftKings Sportsbook. You might be able to hit up a few workouts starting Thursday. Yeah.
Yep. Thursday through Sunday is the combine.
What were you saying, Henry? In my DMs?
Yeah, hit my DMs if you want some action on any of these.
Okay.
I know.
There you go. Okay. That is not sponsored content. That's Henry on his own going. I just want to say that.
My DMs.
Yeah, Jake, take it away.
All right. A lot of these are pretty creative that I have. Anything from 40s to bench reps to 3 cones. Also, as we get into the back end, we'll have a bit more fun with them. My first one, though, Treylon Burks, wide receiver out of Arkansas. Let's go to his 40-yard dash time, and let's go over under 4.39.
Ooh.
Listed at 6'3", 225. He's one of 3 like true freak athletes at the wide receiver position, but Drake London and Jamison Williamson. Yeah, I got that name right.
Williams, yep.
Just Williams.
Thanks.
Yeah.
They're dealing with nagging injuries. I don't know how much you can expect from them, or even a George Pickens, who aren't at 100%. Right. But Burks, on the other hand, who's seen as like Big Debo because of how versatile he is the freak that will be on display. So that's kind of setting the scene for you if you're not super familiar with the Arkansas product.
A little Demaryius Thomas in him?
Big boy. Yeah. Usually a comp like that, I would, lashings would be given out. The fact that lashings aren't handed out says it all.
Yep.
Okay. What do you think, fellas? 4-3-9.
I feel like the over is the safe bet here. It's just so hard to go that fast. At the same time, like, he is one of like the 3 or 4 fastest receivers, at least fastest notable receivers in this draft. I'm sure there's like some guy from Western Michigan who's just going to run like a 4.27 and he'll be 5'8" and be out of the league in 2 years. But in terms of like players who are relevant, he is right up there. If I have to pick a side, I'm gonna take the over, and I think I'm probably gonna regret it. I'm worried about that. That's a well set line.
It's well set.
I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna say he runs it like a 4.35.
Wow.
There you go.
Hank talking to the over, but it's close. I mean, it's right there.
Marius was a 4.38, by the way.
I'll go under. I don't know if I'm picking my own over-unders here, but I'm going to pick it because I think that Treylon Burks is the potential to really become one of the stars of the combine. We'll get to our risers later, but as a guy coming in as a sort of headliner, I expect him to stay there after this weekend.
Interesting. Definitely a big one to watch for sure. Take us to the next one, Jake.
All right. We're going to stay with 40-yard dashes. This time we're going to go to Kayvon Thibodeau. We're going to go over under 4.53. The 4.53 is Jadeveon Clowney's time from, what was this, 2016, 2017, whenever he came out?
Wow.
I really hope it's over. I'll say that. I really hope that the teams just have a reason to keep overthinking him. I still think, I know I backed off a little bit. He is the best talent in this draft. He just is the best talent in this draft. And if he runs slowly, you could see how we could get through, 2 more months, a month and a half of teams just being like, oh, I don't know, 7 sacks in the Pac-12. And then he could slip to the Broncos. Give me the over. Give me the over.
Love it.
4.53, we said?
Yeah,
4.53.
it's hard for a guy with that much size to run something south of that. I mean, if he does, it's like we said, there's probably no chance he ends up falling to 9. But yeah, I'm gonna say over, but barely.
Dre?
Yeah, I'll go over. I think he's closer to Bradley Chubb's 4.65, and he excels a little more on the 3 cone and what have you. Though man, at his size, 4.65. Blazing, amazing.
Yeah, I'd take the under on that too. I'd definitely take the under on that.
On 4.65.
On 4.65, I'd take the under.
Yeah.
Dang.
I'm thinking
I think
4.6 flat is probably it.
Yeah, I'm with Hank. I think 4.65 is easy work for KT. 4.53 is. I know Clowney's. It's not a ideal comp, but it's they're 2 freakish guys. I know Clowney was kind of at a different level, but. All right, ready for the next one then. How about any prospects under 4.3 in the 40-yard dash? So anyone to run a 4.2, whether it's 4.29, or do we get a 4.2?
Yes, hammer the under.
No.
Interesting.
I'm having trouble thinking of who could do it. Especially with Stingley not there.
We'll get one at a pro day, but we're not getting one on the combine.
Right.
You don't have a ton. It'd be Isaiah Spiller, Calvin Austin, who's 160 pounds out of Memphis. He was at the Senior Bowl. John Dodson, though you never know if the why would he run when he can run a 4.1 at the Penn State track?
At the Penn State track, yeah.
Roger McCreary. There's a hot name right now for this. I think that's a good one. Another toolsy long cornerback, the Auburn guy. That's a fun one to watch.
He runs a 4.2. That'd be huge for his stock.
It would be.
Ahead of Andrew Booth from Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
I think
if he runs a 4.2, right? Yeah. Woo. I almost cussed there. That'd be crazy. That's a nice hot take, Hank. I like that one.
Next one.
Yeah, I saw Daxton Hill in the chat. Daxton Hill would be fun to watch. That's a sneaky pick for. I don't think he gets that low though. I think he could get the 4.35 that everybody gets excited about, but I don't think he breaks 4.3.
Yeah, he's
4.2 for a safety's place.
Exactly. It just doesn't happen.
Right. He was a 5-star recruit, a massive recruit when he went to Michigan, though. So he definitely could put up some insane numbers. Last 40-yard dash, actually, I lied. We have one more. Malik Willis, over under 4.5.
Ooh.
Under. Barely. 4.89, 4.88, but or 4.48. You know what I mean? Barely under.
Right.
But
right.
I'll take the under too. This might be the most watched 40 time, right? In terms because if he's gonna wind up being a top 10 pick, it's gonna be because he's freaky fast in all the testing.
Let me ask you this, Henry. How fast a track is the Ohio State track? Because Justin Fields ran a 4.44.
I don't know how fast the track. I mean, you'd have to imagine it's a fast track, right? Like it's Ohio State.
Okay.
But in terms of like, I can't think of a reason. I'm there's no buzz around the Ohio State track. I'll say that.
4.4s have become more common for quarterbacks. I think Malik gets it. I think he gets it. Yeah.
He has to.
Jake, where would you lean on that
strength
one?
that he's a guy that goes downhill. Like he's used to running like this. And I do think that's a factor with some of these, like defensive ends and stuff. You're not necessarily used to being like a downhill.
Right.
I don't know if I'm being a bit of a chicken if I say this, but I think I'm going to go barely over. I think that he's like a 4.51, 4.52. I think he's right there. It's enough to keep it interesting, but I don't think we get under that number.
I mean, that could happen, like especially if you have like a slow, you have to run so perfectly to run a 4.4. Like if you get off the block a little bit late, you stumble even half a step, that's the difference between being below and above it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's why these are well set lines, because
shorter legs too.
You always want to hammer. I mean, usually it's the over, but in this case, it's the under. It's the more attractive number, rooting for a faster time. So you got to always set it a little more aggressively. If not, it's too enticing to go to root for that.
I have an over under for you guys.
Let's hear it, Justin.
Lay it off.
All right. Over under 2.5 wide receivers putting up 20 or more bench reps.
Ooh.
2.5? Usually the box
20 is
guys,
a lot. Yeah.
It is a lot.
How many receivers you say? You said 2.5?
Yeah. 1.5 might have been the better line if it's only receivers.
And even on 1.5, I think we just get one guy. I take the under.
So what if I open it up to pass catchers, where now you get guys like Trey McBride and some of these tight ends in the mix?
Tight ends will do it.
Tight ends will do it. You'd want to set that more at like 4.5, maybe.
You almost wonder about like
even then, dude. 20 is a lot, and they ding you for any type of.
Yeah.
Again, like Pro Day 20 and Combine 20 are a completely different thing.
This is beautiful.
Could Jahan Dotson, like those little guys? I feel like those are the guys who are better at that. He just doesn't seem like he could do it. Like he's just not a strong guy.
I remember Eddie Royal having an epic showing on the bench back in the day.
Yeah,
Shouts to Eddie Royal.
Exactly.
You just reminded me of my guy last year. Didn't Rondale Moore put up like an insane bench number last year? I'm trying to look for it. I can't find it.
Those are the guys, when you're looking at 20, those are the guys who are going to do it. Like
right,
because it's those long ass arms. Not that he's doing anything, like that's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll go over, Justin. I think Burks has it easy. I think we'll see someone like a George Pickens or a John Mechie, someone who's not going to really run at the combine, just go all out on the bench.
I'll take the under. Again, like Burks is where your brain goes first. Where you're like, he's going to do it. But those long arms, like I'm not betting on his long arms.
So true.
I think it's under if it's receivers, but like I said, I think if you frame it as pass catchers, then it's probably over just with the tight ends. Even then, I don't think it's as big of a lock as you might seem, just because like a lot of those guys get to 16, 17, and they just kind of lose steam there. There's probably a couple running backs who technically could be framed as pass catchers as well. Like, I don't know, a dude like Max Borghi, it wouldn't surprise me if he just put up monster bench because he's just that type of dude, the gym rat with the 12-pack and biceps like this. Like, it doesn't necessarily translate to being like a great football player, but he's a great athlete.
Back in 2019, it did.
I've got a bench press one.
Yeah, okay. Let's do it.
Okay, Jordan Davis, Georgia defensive tackle, the absolutely massive human being. He is listed at 6'6", 340. How about over under 30 reps on the bench?
Under, because it's just an insane number.
30s
Have you seen Jordan Davis throw offensive linemen off of him, Justin?
Yeah, he's a freak, dude. But again, it's just there are very few situations where these guys rep like that. Like that's not how you lift on a normal basis. So unless it's a point of emphasis for him to like, you want to know what? I'm going to put up 35 reps, and it might be, and then I'll look like a jackass when he puts up 39. But like, it's an insane number.
Give me the over. Give me the over. He's gonna do it. He's gonna because like that's the thing though, is like if you're gonna put up a number like that, you're gonna do it pretty easily. Like you're either so strong that it's like you're just
right.
It doesn't
you
even
know
matter.
like the first 5 reps,
in the air, or you're not. And so that's why it's like. But Stephen Paye, I just looked it up, has the record with like 49. It's like, yeah, he's just a strong guy. That's like me lifting up like a cup of water or something. I'm gonna bet on Jordan Davis being that kind of guy.
For reference sake, Vita Vea had 41. And that's the dilemma and comp. You're gonna absurd. 41 is otherworldly, man. I just think Jordan Davis is that dude. Now, the thing is, how long are his arms? I wouldn't be surprised if he was like 35 plus inches. And then it doesn't matter how big you are. 25 is a task.
What do you guys think of like the Vita Vea, Jordan Davis?
Just too long.
I'd go over all the way. What was that, Hank?
What do you think? Like, I've seen some debates on the internet, Vita Vea and Jordan Davis, where it's like Jordan Davis could be just like Vita Vea, where it's like maybe he's not out there on the field constantly, but when he is, he's just beating the hell out of whoever's in front of him. At the same time, Vita Vea, like he might just be a freak.
I don't know. I mean,
I think you explained it perfectly. Like that's kind of the two scenarios, right?
Yeah, but which one is it?
Right.
We don't know.
Vea's like top of the league at his position though, so it's kind of tough to say that Jordan's going to come in and be that. I will say, looking at the combine or the pro day numbers, I guess they match up pretty like similarly in terms of height and weight. Vita coming in at 6'4", 347. He only had 32 and 5/8 arms. Andre, if you were wondering.
Yeah, so that makes all the difference in the world. Yeah. I understand the debate. I think Vita Vea is expecting a smidge too much. I also thought Vita Vea was just a little more unique as an interior pass rusher, and just his like escapability and ability to slip blocks. Yeah, quick feet. Jump off. I do think in a class where we keep hearing outside of the top 10, 12, 15, it's basically second round value, how a guy who's going to demand double teams is still not fully in the mix in the first round. And, commanding double teams, it does matter how it offsets the math up front for your defensive line and frees up other guys. The great modern example is in that Jim Harbaugh, Vic Fangio defense with Justin Smith. Justin Smith wasn't dynamic or great. He would literally grab onto and hold two linemen to free up Alden Smith. No relation, right? And that was what dominated that front on top of the two interior linebackers. So, it's not like we've seen Dwayne Brown get drafted in the top 10 really high. It's not like Vita Vea was the only nose tackle that's ever been considered with a high pick in the NFL. But at the same time, you're making an investment who at best will only be on the field 55% of the time.
All right. I've got 4 more. If you guys want to speed it up a bit here, and we can
let's do it.
All. Let's go to Kyle Hamilton. This one I think kind of tests how much film have you watched to this point? Over under on his vertical, 39.5. Does he get that magic 40 number?
I think so. I think he does. I think he's one of these testers. I think he does that. Yeah. I think he runs real fast. I think maybe if he disappoints, it's the long arms and the bench press, but the quickness, the speed, and I'll give him the jumping too. I think it's over.
I'm gonna say under, but not like substantially.
Man, he's such a hard one because he kind of glides. It doesn't even look like he runs fast. So you almost wonder, is that explosiveness at that level there? But yeah, I think it is. I think he's just kind of different. That's another really well set line, though.
Well,
that's right.
For reference for there, that was set off of Isaiah Simmons' vertical of 39 inches. If you go back, remember, guys, the game against Cincinnati, when I think it was first quarter, Kyle Hamilton jumps like 80 feet in the air and blocks a Desmond Ridder pass. So I think he's got it in the bag.
I think so too. I like
it. Let's do, how about this one? The benchmark is going to be Nick Bosa's 3-cone time, which was at 7.1. How about Aiden Hutchinson over under that?
Love this one. I think it's a firm over. And Nick Bosa got kind of for that 7-1, but it was good at his size. Hutch is just a little longer. That's not necessarily his game, and I think he'll still run a decent one for his size, but it won't be a 7-1.
Yeah, I'm also under. I almost said over because better, but no, under because it's better. I think he's faster or quicker, or whatever you want to call it. I feel good about that.
Then Nick Bosa. Okay. I respect it. I respect it.
And stood his ground, dude. He didn't flinch on that. That was
he didn't.
Dre came for him, and he was But I will say over as well, just because that's for a guy with that size, that would be crazy rare. I mean, he's a phenomenal football player. Some of these drills, it's better suited for some of the bendier, shifty guys, and he's kind of more of like I'm just gonna boom go through you.
I'll add that when remember Antonio Alfano, the former #1 recruit in the country, goes to Bama, comes to Colorado. When he did his like pre-college testing, he went to whatever site. All of his numbers were better than Nick Bosa's at the combine. So like the 40 time, the quickness stuff, the size,
sounds like the Penn State track.
So that was all the hype, and so that's why I was like, if Antonio Alfano can do it, I'm taking Aiden Hutchinson. I'm gonna bank on him.
Nobody has ever lied on their recruiting profile about their abilities. It's 100% honest integrity.
It's the opening.
If anyone in the chat who knows who Antonio Alfano is, hit us up. I'd love to get a sampling on that. Before we dig into some questions, that's the last one, Jake, or did you have any more for us?
I got two more. They're a bit of left field ones. All right. First one. In the gauntlet drill, the drill where quarterbacks or whoever is throwing the ball, they go down the 50-yard line. You got to turn each direction, right? You catch like 8 balls. Receivers and defensive backs do it. Over under 1.5 headshots in the gauntlet drill this year.
Over.
It's a well set line.
Give me the over. Give me the over. We all want to cheer for the over.
Yeah, we all want.
One is a classic.
Give me the over. It's kind of class to pelt a few guys in the helmet. It's both at quarterback. It just we've got it going on. It's prime time, no doubt.
It's like when you go to the driving range and you try and hit the cart. Those QBs want to do it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, final one. The reason why we all watch the combine. Rich Eisen's 40-yard dash over under 6 seconds. To give you a little bit of context, last year he ran 5.98. His fastest time was in 2016. He ran a 5.94. He has gone under 5 seconds 1, 2, 3 times since he started doing it in 2010. Over under 6 seconds, boys.
Holy cow.
Give me the under.
Let's go.
Let me bet on Rich Eisen. I'm not a good bettor. I'll add that as well.
I'm going the over. It's been a year where physical fitness has been deprioritized for a lot of folks. I'm betting he may be, watching Cobra Kai on Netflix a little bit and then not hitting the gym the way you should. I'm saying it's like a 6-1.
I think Rich is dialed in. I think he's dialed in. I'm taking
I
the
love
under.
that. I hope so. I hope for
him.
his sake he does it. Sub 6 at his age is pretty freaking impressive, I will say.
It's incredible. Absolutely. All right. That was the last one. That was that was great. Before we jump into the final segment and take your questions, let's get into our predictions with the biggest risers coming out of the combine. A lot of names we've already floated around, but now's your time to put your stamp on who will be the underwear Olympics winners, the big risers coming out the combine, which will probably mean more in a more volatile draft year like this one. Jake, start us off. Who you got?
I'm going to go with my guy, Jalen Wademeyer. He's super long and athletic, tight end out of Texas A&M. Hank saw him up close and personal, and all he could do was marvel about how massive of a human he was. He's a guy that, I don't want to compare him to Kyle Pitts, but he's super athletic, super long. I think that he's going to put up some insane numbers, some really good jumps. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets under that 4.5 number. I think that he's going to have a real big rise here.
Love that.
I'll throw Troy Anderson out there. This is the time where I'm jumping on the train. He was one of the big risers at the Senior Bowl. Afterward, Mel Kiper was saying like he's a second or third round guy. This is the linebacker from Montana State, by the way, but he's one of those modern, like, is he a linebacker? Is he a pass rusher? Do you line him up in the slot even, and not as like a slot corner, but against heavier formations in that kind of like modern, whatever you call it, defense? And because of that, and because he's an FCS player, I think that people will be a little bit surprised about how quickly he runs. I think that while he did get a little bit of hype after, again, like a really good Senior Bowl performance, this is the one where he gets into the real conversation in that like top 100 range.
That was actually who I had as my number one guy as well, just because after Hank had talked about him, I went back, and also because CSU's defensive coordinator came over from Montana State. So I've been watching them a lot, and he's a guy you just can't, take your eyes off of. He's a freaky athlete, and I think he's really going to shine. But just for the sake of throwing some more guys out there, I think Trey McBride, obviously, but after what he did at the Senior Bowl, I don't know if his stock can necessarily go up that much higher. But I do think in these situations where he's competing and you get to look at him and then you look at the tight end next to him, and it's one of those where it's like, well, who would you rather have? Trey McBride, I don't know if he stands out quite as much in this, underwear type setting. He's going to look better at the Senior Bowl. So again, I think Weidermeyer is probably better for that pick. But I'll throw James Cook out there, the Georgia running back, Dalvin's brother.
Let's go, Justin.
We've talked a lot about how his game translates much better at the next level. And I think he's going to be able to show his ability as a pass catcher. I think he's going to move well. And he's a guy who I would really like to see potentially end up in Denver, because I think paired with Javonte Williams, that's a really dynamic backfield.
And I'll throw in there real quick with Trey McBride. Bench press is big for him because he's not one of those like big long guys. Like if
arms are long though, arms are real long.
But he's not Jalen Weidermeyer, 6'5" frame trying to get down there. I think he is a little bit boxier than that. Yeah. I do think that like if he can put up a huge number, that would really help his case. I think it's possible.
I feel pretty good about that based on what I know about Trey.
Inside info.
Yeah. I'll go Trayvon Walker, the defensive end out of Georgia. We're already starting to see that rise, but he is a big defensive end. He's long. He's one of the few guys in the like 270s and not one of these smaller edges in the 255, 260. And he really stands out in pursuit when he has to like chase behind a running back. He's that big defensive end that'll be catching running backs or wide receivers, downfield and chasing them down. So I really think while his production, especially in such a talented front where they had to, the pressures were very much by committee, that he should really blow up in the combine and make it reached on a little bit, because I think while you like all the tools, the one that's most in doubt is his ability to consistently get after the passer. And when you're drafting a defensive end, that is kind of key. In fact, kind of scares me and reminds me a little of Deion Jordan, but Trayvon Walker definitely top guys. Give me two more before we get out of here.
All right. I'm going to go with DeMarvin Leal, a guy who's really kind of, I don't want to say dropped off, but I think his stock's been a little bit disrespected, honestly. 3-year player at Texas A&M, was a 5-star recruit, plays inside, can play outside. He's versatile along the front. He got 8.5 sacks this year, 12.5 tackles for loss. I mean, this is a guy that the pedigree and profile says he's just going to test out of his mind. And he's lost a lot of steam in terms of stock with all these other guys kind of taking the show at the Senior Bowl and such. I expect him to kind of come out and regain some of that momentum.
Love that.
We mentioned Daxton Hill earlier, but I think this is where he really shines. You know, he's been kind of that fringe first rounder through the entire process, but everybody wants fast DBs at this point, and he is absolutely that, and he's a hitter on top of it. And I think that because he does have some of those other traits, like still some mistakes in coverage, those sorts of things, but you have the hitting ability, you have the downhill ability, but also to throw in a bunch of speed. I think that kind of rounds out a lot of what he is. I think he's going to shoot up draft boards after this week.
Hank's going Michigan. I'm going Ohio State. Chris Olave, wide receiver, I think has at times kind of been forgotten about with the rise of, Treylon Burks and some of these other guys. But I do think he's going to run well. I think he's going to, one of those guys, again, we kind of mock it, but the underwear Olympics, he's just going to look really good in this situation. Very smooth pass catcher, good route runner, just a complete player. And I think that over these next couple of days, we all kind of remember just how special Olave can be.
Like that. I'll go Trevor Penning, a guy who's already rising a lot, but the Northern Iowa small school guy, we've seen it a lot. Lane Johnson, Spencer Brown, the small school guy who rises up. He's already really, really big, and I think you see plenty of athleticism on tape, which should translate at the combine. And another guy who we're already kind of seeing rise up in mocks and being, mocked in the top 10 in some places. That might become more regular at the combine. Jake, can you do a 3-for-3 Texas A&M sweep?
Almost. I went with Edge again. I went with Drake Jackson out of USC. Kind of the same thing as Leal, honestly.
Great pick.
A guy who was, we were talking top 5, even number 1 overall possibility about a year ago with him in this class. Now he's way down here. Draft Network had him at 78, kind of a meteoric fall. But I think that he's someone like Leal who he fits the pedigree of someone who will test well at the combine. And I think he's going to do that.
And he comes off a team, first of all, just a bad team with a poorly coached defense that was running different things every week, switching from 3-4 to 4-3 to all these different. And I think when you have a guy in college, like you want to give him some stability and say, here's what we are going to do. This is what you do. This is how you get to the quarterback instead of changing it up. So I do think that hurt him. That's a good pick. And that was one that I considered. I wound up going with Josh Jobe from Alabama, the cornerback. I think that his speed doesn't really pop on tape so much, particularly because of everybody else on that defense. Last year there's Pat Surtain on the other side who's just a freak. And so he's kind of been forgotten about, and I'm not sure that he is necessarily like a first round pick, but I do think that once he gets out there and puts the numbers up, at least he starts to get into that conversation a little bit. I think his speed shows up in particular.
I'm gonna go Wyoming linebacker Chad Muma and stay on brand, rep the Mountain West. He's a Colorado kid, a really cool guy. But he's really gonna look good in some of the the 3-cone and in some of these situations where he just gets to show how twitchy he is, how quick he is. He has great hands. He's phenomenal in pass coverage. Really, a lot of the things that we said about Devin Lloyd, you can kind of also attribute to Chad Muma, it's not quite the same level. I mean, Devin Lloyd, in my opinion, is a generational type linebacker. But when I look at Chad Muma, I see a guy who can be a 3-down player, very effective. And I think, he's really going to help his case because he's been overlooked a little bit at times in what is a talented linebacker group.
Love that. We've said a ton of names throughout this show that I could have easily thrown out there. Kyle Hamilton, Devin Lloyd, Daxton Hill, Mijay Sanders would be another I'd throw out. But I think Isaiah Spiller to close out the Texas A&M talk. Modern back, dynamic back, guy with some size and a ton of speed, and some real versatility as a pass catcher as well. So love me some Isaiah Spiller. I think in an odd running back class, he's a guy who could really blow up.
I like
we got
that.
all,
and that's not
we got him
one
all
I really
in, huh?
considered, but that is true. Like he has the speed, but like it's the physicality that really I feel like kind of separates him. But the speed will definitely pop. He definitely has NFL speed, and I think that gets overlooked. That's a good one.
Thank you, Henry. I appreciate it. The physicality, not just of Isaiah Spiller, but of UFC 272 will also be appreciated and enjoyed as Covington takes on Masvidal in the Octagon, one of the great all-time UFC fights. This is a rematch. It's going to be great. Just $1 on DraftKings Sportsbook, the king of sportsbooks and the official sports betting partner of the USC. Bet just $1 on the main event and get $100 in free bets no matter what. A guaranteed 100 free. What a deal for new users on DraftKings Sportsbook. That is incredible. And also Covington, so hateable. Even if you lose money, which you won't, it sounds like, you just put it on Masvidal, you'll be ecstatic. Jeez, what a deal for new users. Existing users get amazing deals too. Left, right, center. Great customer care, great app, updated recently, by the way. All sorts of great deals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code DNVR to throw down just $1 on the UFC 272 main event and get $100 in free bets. No matter what happened in the fight, that's code DNVR this Saturday at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official betting partner of UFC. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. And Justin, Strava, you got it?
Yeah, we can do Strava. Let me pull it up here. I love Strava.
Or was it
Henry?
I don't remember who I assigned this to.
It doesn't matter. I can do it.
Wow.
I don't know about you guys. I don't ever want to leave my house at this point. So if I can get it delivered, that is the move. And that is why I love Strava Craft Coffee. I never have to leave my house again for coffee. I can get it delivered straight to my doorstep every 2, 4, 6, or 8 weeks with their subscription service. And on top of that, I'm going to get 20% off every single time. If you haven't tried Strava Craft, you got to check it out. I'm telling you, it is so smooth, so tasty. You can have 8 cups of it and not get any jitters. And, it's CBD infused, so it helps you with migraines, IBS, all kinds of problems. When you use the code DNVR25 at StravaCraftCoffee.com, you're going to get 25% off your entire order. That is big time. Like I said, it helps with headaches, joint pains, IBS, so much more. Go to StravaCraftCoffee.com and check it out today. Make sure you're using that code DNVR25. Save 25% off your order. Whew, pulled it out.
Beautiful. Nicely done. Yeah, you pulled that off like you had a little Strava this morning. A little pep in your step, a little extra juice to get you going on that one. Well done. Addition
Question
on here pod. We take questions. Yes, Jake. Starting with Jake.
Do we think that the Penn State track is fueled by Strava Craft Coffee?
Wow. Yes, we do.
Henry, there you go. That might be the secret to all these fast tracks, frankly.
Yeah.
Right?
I
That's
wouldn't.
stupid.
Hank's
you know.
thinking long and
Yeah.
hard.
Science. Yeah.
That definitely is.
Science.
That really got my mind going in a bunch of different ways.
Science, man. All right, what are the questions? Let's get into it.
We'll start with the Bronco Oilers. If we don't get Rodgers, now we should mention this. These are all questions from DMVR subscribers, thedmvr.com. Become a member today. Get a free T-shirt with membership. All the content, fellas out in Indy, the draft stuff we've got up our sleeves coming, especially from Jake, Justin, Henry, at the tourneys, at the conference basketball tournaments. Hopefully March Madness will knock on wood. College football season, much to their chagrin, around the corner. Avs Nuggets
mean?
Seasons. To your displeasure, let's say.
No, I'm pleased. I love football.
You are, huh?
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that, Henry. And everything else, Nuggets, Avs, Rockies may come back. Probably there'll be baseball again. MLS season kicking off. DMVR, amazing stuff. Ryan Greed just on board. Support us, become a member, jump in on all the amazing perks, and don't miss out, because this is really one of those epic times of year in Denver sports where everything's going on at once, and you really don't want to miss out on that membership. One of the many perks, being able to ask questions to the DMVR Broncos pod, draft pod as well. We remember to answer those from time to time. And so, as is tradition, we jump right in, and that's where we get back to Bronco Oilers. If we don't get Rodgers, do you think the front office becomes more likely to talk themselves into a first-round quarterback in what is perceived to be a weak class? The expectation is that they're pretty risk averse when it comes to drafting quarterbacks, and they'd go free agent veteran route, but there really aren't many compelling options out there. Add to that the history we've had passing on draft for veteran trade free agent options. It makes me wonder if the front office will be weary of trying to sell that to the fan base and the locker room for another season. So what do you think? Change of tendency and more likely to draft a quarterback if Rodgers isn't had?
I mean, if you don't have Aaron Rodgers, then you are definitely more likely to draft a quarterback. That I think
no
that's
doubt. Yes.
where you start. At the same time,
great point.
Like, how do you pass on Justin Fields at 9 and take Malik Willis at 9? How do you pass on Mac Jones at 9 and pick Kenny Pickett at 9? And maybe that one doesn't fit. But I do think that in a vacuum,
it's pretty well to me.
I don't see it. Probably, maybe there's a trade down, maybe second round, even, who knows. But the one difference, obviously, is that you did get your coaching change. Maybe Nathaniel Hackett says, yeah, I want to take a chance on one of those guys. And that's kind of the X factor. And that seems tough to predict. And to me, if I'm Nathaniel Hackett, I think I've got 3 years where I'm really confident that I get to be around. I'm not going to get fired. I also don't think I'm going to get fired after year one. I think it's going to be easy to excuse year one if I don't get a quarterback. And so it probably does make more sense from his perspective, too, to wait and get one you really like, unless he sees something in one of these guys that I don't, or we don't, or who knows.
That's the thing, right? Yeah. If you do draft one of these guys in the first 2 rounds, it's worth getting that 5th-year deal and taking him in the first round if you are going to do it. Mm-hmm. But as we've all made it pretty clear over the last couple of months, none of us are, jumping with joy to commit long-term to any of these guys. There's a lot of project picks. I do think you draft a quarterback. I hope that one of these, top 6 guys fall to the 3rd or 4th round or something like that. And you bring somebody in and you let them compete with Drew Lock. If you don't get Aaron Rodgers, that's obviously best case. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Especially top 10, I think Hank sold it pretty well. Like, if you didn't believe in Justin Fields and Mac Jones, 2 guys who showed, they weren't perfect, but there was a lot to work with and showed a hell of a lot more than any of these guys have. I don't know how you then take Kenny Pickett in the top 10 this year.
Right. I'm right there with you guys. I think, just going to George Payton, he's a scout, right? And I think that he understands that patience is a part of the process. He understands that, first year head coach, year 2 for him at GM. I don't think he's necessarily in a rush to get a quarterback. And I think after he's going to do his due diligence, he'll come to a similar realization as us, and that maybe these guys aren't something, to bet on long term. Or I could be completely wrong, because I thought last year that was going to be the year they took a quarterback at 9, and well, we all know what happened. So,
yeah, I mean, you guys make a good point. History would suggest that George Payton is not just going to jump the gun all of a sudden, but Hackett is a massive factor in that. I wouldn't add much more than that. Coach Tobin chimes in and says, "Great show. How about we draft the kicker from Texas and move on from McManus? He is really good, has the best name, and will be cost controlled." That's all I have for today.
I gotta Google this guy.
Yeah,
my only qualm is we don't get Gus Johnson coming with him to say Dicker, a kicker, and because of that, I don't know. You don't necessarily need a kicker. You've got McManus. He's been reliable. Again, if Gus Johnson was a part of the deal and he got to therefore call every single Broncos games and just get me jacked every time that Dicker, the kicker. It was must watch TV. But yeah, he's great. But Denver doesn't need a kicker.
What was his big game winner like his freshman year? Was it against OU?
Yeah, it was OU. It was the red.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite moments in college football in the last 5 years or so. That was awesome. I couldn't tell you too much about scouting the kicker though. I personally like Mr. Brandon McManus. So I'm down with sticking with my guy another year.
Okay, so I just pulled up the stats. He hit a 50-yarder this year. That was his long. And I was like, a little disappointing. Year before that, 53. Year before that, he hit one from 57. Year before that, 52. So, I mean,
he's got a big leg
bad,
for sure.
Not a reason to move on from one of the best kickers in the NFL, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, I haven't dug in too much to this kicker class, but I'm not a big draft special teams, punting and kicking. I don't think that works out as well as people imagine.
Just like an insanely good kick. Like if he hits a 65-yarder at some point, then you're like, okay, maybe. But even then, I don't know. I hate it.
It's a Raiders
even
move.
Stonehouse didn't get a combine invite, so I think you can bring in a lot of talented specialists without having to invest draft capital in them. And I understand that because of this year, the whole trend. Oh, they drafted the kicker, but it's just not the norm.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't always work out. Like Zane Gonzalez and Mason Crosby are the most sure, right? And the Florida State kid, Robert Arroyo, just seemed like completely sure things. Zane Gonzalez got cut after a couple years. Mason Crosby's had a great career. He hasn't always been flawless. Yeah, and Janikowski's a first rounder. I mean, I don't even know if that counts. I don't know if that counts. Like you lost that pick. I don't care how good Janikowski was. It was a first rounder. I don't know what to tell you.
He would have still been there in the second round. Or the third round, probably the fourth round even. But
probably, yeah.
At least the third, at least early third, I think you can safely assume a kicker should still be there. Jeez, man. I really don't know. Then we've got Massive Chubb chiming in that drafting Vladimir Zinski as quarterback with the 9th overall pick would make me one happy Chubb. And Windy City Bronco that he seconds the notion of Zelinski. His PFF stats when he's pressured are off the charts, which, yeah, no doubt. Good point there. We've got time for just a couple more from the Friday pod, since now with the new format on the 3-ring circus, you guys aren't getting your questions answered. And we'll get into one more from Melbourne Bronco. Hi, guys. I'm almost exhausted with the QB discussion, but it shows just how important it is here in Denver. Yeah, no kidding. I'd be happy with Mariota. I think the coaching panel could develop a game plan around him. He has some special tricks, and his time at the Titans was hurt by injuries. But if we bring in another mid-tier quarterback, we can't keep Locke. The fan base is already so divided, it would only get worse. Cheers.
Can I go?
Yeah, please.
As a college football guy, Marcus Mariota was fun. I do see a
Incredible.
path to like a career revival for him in a game manager type role, very Teddy Bridgewater situation, and he could do that. I will say this though, as far as Drew Lock goes, the front office doesn't give a shit about what the fans think or if who they want to start. They're not going to just dump him. They've got him under contract, so no matter who they bring in, I don't. Unless he just totally flames out, like I just don't see a scenario in which they just dump Drew Lock for no good reason. You have him; he's a backup plan at the very least. But I do get it, and as somebody who's tired of Lock versus Bridgewater, Lock versus whoever, I get it. It's old. All of us are tired of doing the same song and dance. So you're spot on. And I hope I wasn't too snarky with my response because I get where you're coming from with the question. But I just mean, the front office, they're not making this from, there's going to be a whole 6 more months of Twitter debate. They don't care. They don't care.
Yep. And on top of that, Locke is more than likely going to be on this team regardless. Like he's shown that he's a good backup quarterback, and you can have him be your backup quarterback for really cheap. I mean, the other way he doesn't is... So, I mean, let's go through scenarios. You bring in a veteran quarterback. You bring in Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, Locke's your backup. You draft a rookie. Locke's your backup. If you sign somebody like Mariota and then draft a rookie, then you could see how Locke gets cut. And so that's kind of like the only way that happens. And even that would be weird because you're basically getting a quarterback who's just as good as Locke and paying him more if you're bringing in Mariota. So it'd have to be like you don't plan to draft a quarterback, you wind up drafting a quarter. It'd just be a really weird scenario. I do think of all the available quarterbacks, Mariota is the best one. Like when you compare him and Teddy and a bunch of those guys, like is he any good? Probably not. Like he had the one good game against the Chargers a couple years ago, like overtime, where he played really well, but we just haven't really seen much of him. Why not? Why not bring him in compared to who else is even out there? Andy Dalton, Nick Foles. Like,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Fitzpatrick.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, I think there's a legit argument that Marcus Mariota has been the 4th best quarterback in the AFC West the last couple of years when he's been on the Raiders, honestly. So I actually have one of my good friends is a Raiders fan. I would joke to him all the time, man, if the Broncos had Mariota, they might actually, have something because while he does have his limitations, Mariota does have the ability to really extend and actually like make magic happen outside the pocket while extending plays. He's athletic, of course. And from what I remember in his Titans days, he really kind of took care of the ball. He wasn't really putting the ball up at risk. He didn't have like 3-4 interception games all the time. As kind of a contingency plan, if you don't get, a Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, I think Mariota would be a solid option for sure.
And also, I mean, I think a lot of teams are thinking the same thing, and I don't think you're necessarily picking up Marcus Mariota for $5 million next year.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Be
kind
more
of
fun
like
than Case Keenum or Mark Sanchez or Joe Flacco or Teddy Bridgewater, though. He could at least run.
Well, I mean, him and Teddy will be some of the hotter free agency options at the position. You mentioned a couple more. I mean, I think route A for any team is drafting and developing a quarterback because you're going to get those 4 years of cost control, 5 basically, if you get them in the first round. Route B is being able to draft a veteran and compete for titles right away, which we've seen trade or sign. We've seen the last 2 Super Bowl winners went that route. And then route C is essentially hope that you can find a retread and you're able to turn them into Ryan Tannehill or what Alex Smith became for the Niners 10 years ago now when Harbaugh first got there. And I guess Mariota is one of the more intriguing options to go with that C route. Locke's probably not that far behind, though, as far as reclamation projects going into this off season. It's guys like him and Sam Darnold, and I mean, whatever. Like, it's going to be slim pickings. So yeah, I think if you can't go route A or B, and route A, well, in this class, it's only at the right pick and at the right value, and route B we'll see, but that's very hard. Only so many guys will get the Kylers and Russell Wilsons and Aaron Rodgers, if any of them even come available. And so if you have to, okay, well, by committee, route C might not be the worst. What I will say about keeping Drew Lock is, whatever the fans do, and as annoying as it might be for us and for all of you in these chats and comment sections, Drew Lock needs to step it up. I don't know that he was at his best last year. Once he lost the competition. And so, whoever they throw at him, if he's still on the team, this really needs to be a bit of a last chance saloon type of attitude for him and really try to get his best. And then no matter who the quarterback is, they got to figure some things out offensively, because that was 2-3 years of like, I don't know who was calling protections at the line, but they could not figure out added pressure ever. It was always just guys
unwatchable, man.
It was unwatchable, right? I mean, and like an 8-year-old at Madden could have figured out how to beat that offense, because all you had to do was bring extra pressure, and guys would just look at each other like, "Wait, you were supposed to pick that one? What?" So hopefully, at least there's a plan in place with who's calling protections and actually following through with those plans, because it wasn't unwatchable, and more years of that aren't going to happen. And extremely cerebral quarterbacks, which Drew Lock and Marcus Mariota, I would say it's fair enough, aren't at this point in their careers, need more assistance on that front. So
can I say one final thing on Lock before we go here?
Please.
Just because since I started it.
Sure.
I agree with you. As far as Locke clearly wasn't at his best, I think he was underprepared to come in and take over, and that's on him. You're a professional. I will say this, though. I think we all feel like that was a quarterback competition that wasn't really a quarterback competition. And Vic Fangio and this previous coaching staff made it pretty openly clear the way they felt about Drew Lock. And while, again, you're a professional, you got to be prepared. I do think it's human to just be like, look, they don't believe in me. I'm not going to be the guy. And, you slip back. Maybe a new coaching staff is what he needs. We talked about Alex Smith. There's nothing I've seen from Drew Lock that makes me feel like, we're going to get this great revival. But just in his defense of kind of a wonky situation, I would say it's probably hard to be at your best when the coaching staff very clearly does not believe in you. And when you come in, they don't put you in a position to succeed from a schematic standpoint. Maybe this new staff, we see a different Drew Lock this fall. I doubt it, but maybe.
I think that's a great way to end it. This has been a blast, fellas. Thank you so much. Tune in all week to the DNVR Broncos podcast live, as the fellas will be giving you all the updates, news, and notes from their time in Indy. Hit that subscribe button. Give this show a thumbs up. And stay tuned all week. And next week, we'll be breaking it down in your pod feeds. It's a great time to be following all our shows. And stay tuned and have a great Monday.